Hello, and welcome to Legal Bites. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legal Bites merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. Diving right on in. Welcome, welcome. Happy Friday, everybody. I normally do these on Thursdays, but this week was a little bit off for me because I was traveling for the first half of the week. I was out of town. And so trying to sort of figure out where this live stream was going to land took a minute. But we've got some really interesting topics today. But first, let's say hi to all the folks that are in the chat. KG, hello from Berlin, Germany. Germany. Catherine Brady from Australia. Welcome. Western Australia specifically. And CR from Alberta, Canada. Welcome. Mantha Johnny, TGIF from Montreal. Love to see all you guys here. Jess Rubery, happy Friday to you too. Happy Friday. Callie J says hello. Jules, hi from the UK. Hello. Gina D from Boca Raton, Florida. We've got Deborah Kaiser from South Carolina. Happy to see you. Synesthesia from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Love it. Has 01 from Alberta, Canada, Runkle Land. I love it. Love to see you guys here. Also with us today is I love having folks to chat about these cases when we're talking about latest in the law. And luckily I have my good friend, Kurt on Civil Law. How's it going, Kurt? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Hang on. I muted you during
very sad for me.
during
Very
the
sad for me.
intro.
How's it going? It's going quietly. Better seen, not heard.
Very quietly. Oh man.
I wouldn't want my voice to distract from all this visage.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, how was your week been?
It has been great. Back home in Austin after a little bit of tour. Got to see Rob in Virginia, got to see Nate and Joe in New York, got to see my family, which I haven't seen in a while, so that was fun. And now back ready, raring to go, getting back into law, back into recording, back into the stream of things. I'm excited.
Awesome. Same. I know my biggest thing that I'm trying to figure out is like the behind the scenes organization to try to get myself consistent and like so people can expect exactly when I'm going to be uploading content or when I'm going to be going live. So that's one of the things that I am really working on, and it's probably the hardest thing, and it's probably the first thing that I need to learn at this point. So that's been the stuff by me.
I've always been a little bit reluctant to have a schedule because, especially with lives, this is like with scheduled lives. Because the problem with having a scheduled live is then I actually have to do it, and that means I have to do it at that time and not another time. And I want to stream when I want to stream. It's like, I see something interesting. I was like, I want to stream about it now. I don't want to have to wait for an hour. I don't want to have to wait till the next day. It's like, and what if the stream time comes and there's nothing for me really to talk about? It's like, do I hold stories over or whatever? So I've been a little reluctant on the regular live stream times. But that being said, I am trying to now do Wednesdays at 5:15. That'd be 6:15 on the East Coast PM as a run-in to Law and Lumber. I'm going to be doing the Great Cases series. And so far we've done Gideon versus Wainwright. And last week we did Mapp versus Ohio.
Oh,
and
nice.
I'm going to pick a different Supreme Court case from history every week, and no shortage of those, and they won't run out, so that's great. And cover those, and we'll go into history, read the laws it was before, understand where the law is now, make fun of old Supreme Court decisions. It's great.
Awesome.
So
Well, that's
check in for
good.
that
That's good. But
on
yeah,
Wednesdays.
there there is something to be said though for I think that one of the things that probably attracted a lot of us to YouTubing is the flexibility of it,
Hmm.
right? So it's like if you make things overly rigid for yourself, then that also kind of eliminates some of the appeal for it too.
Yeah,
So
I'm Veruca Salt over here. I want to stream now.
I know. And sometimes it is good to have like an impromptu stream, right?
Yeah,
Like, like you streamed yesterday, I streamed yesterday when Queen Elizabeth, it was announced that she had passed away. And so, and then you came onto my channel too. And so it's like sometimes, it is helpful to have those impromptu times too. But yeah, it's I don't know, but I think there's something to be said for having the expectation that people can sort of like land on to be like, I know that Saturdays at 10 a.m. East Coast time, Lawyers and Dragons is going to happen. Like I know that at this time, Emily D. Baker is going to be live streaming her thing. So, and Nick Rekieta every single night at like 11 p.m. or whenever it is that he streams. So, there is something to be said for the consistency that can provide.
yes.
So, but yeah,
And then we have to negotiate amongst ourselves because we have to decide who's going to stream at what times as we try to not overlap each other. And so
that too.
there's
I
no
mean,
hurt feelings and stuff, man. We just need we need one big company now so we can schedule the whole thing and have run-ins and everything will be great.
yeah. Well, there's that, but then also like I think we've started to have sort of different demographics for who watches whom, right?
Mm.
Like increasingly so my audience is not exactly the same audience that's shared by Nick Rekieta, Good Logic, and
Oh yeah.
Legal Mindset, like increasingly so. And every time I share a live stream with any of those individuals, their chat reminds me of that.
Well, I will be honored by the implication that my chat is closer to your chat since I'm here. So I
Oh,
appreciate
they're
that.
always they're always welcome on my channel, but I basically my point is to say that there's I think less competition for viewers at
I think
those live
I
hours.
never really felt there was really competition for viewers, and I still don't think that's true. I
Huh.
think that we are well into a rising tide rises all boats territory.
Yeah.
I do not think the market for legal education content is saturated. I don't think everyone who's interested in this material even knows that any of us exist. And
Yeah.
I think that there is room for us all to grow. So
Yeah. I think
that,
I think
that
I think that's a fantastic
I have a
mindset.
generally optimistic view on the whole thing.
I think, yeah, that's good. That's good. And I think you're probably correct about that too, because I mean, just seeing the overall growth of all of the channels in the last couple years has been phenomenal. And I mean, it looks like things are generally speaking trending upwards. So,
Plus, in
which
the
is
end,
good.
we are all bound together by our mutual antagonism against Legal Eagle.
Yes, Legal Eagle and the mainstream media, somehow those two at the same time.
At the end of the day,
uh,
there is one thing that keeps us all together.
exactly,
Thanks,
exactly.
Devin.
Which of course, if Rick were here, he would say, hey, I don't
I
actually have
know.
any problem with him. He's great. And
Well, I think
um,
he's the only one from our group that's actually streamed with him at any point.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
And that's, and that's probably why he has a different perspective. Maybe the rest of us would be a bit less salty about him if we were like given an opportunity to collaborate with him. Or if he took up an opportunity to collaborate with us.
and I will
But
say better as of late, at least his legal analysis has gotten better in terms of being more fair. Because some of
I
his earlier stuff, I was like rolling my eyes real deep, and I think
well,
lately he's been better.
I will say that there is something to be said for the fact that we all regularly interact with one another. So
Mm,
it's like working at firms before, I had one of the actually, yeah, one of my best bosses that I ever had. I mean, is a great lawyer, great legal mind. And like he, number one, always had like the highest anxiety about being wrong. Number two,
Mhm.
he always did like gut checks with other lawyers, whether they were like within the firm or friends of his outside of the firm, to be like, am I reading this correctly? Because I just want to make sure that this is like a sanity check, gut check kind of thing. Um, and so it's like, by regularly doing that, you kind of like check your work a little bit. So we have, I mean, either we're creating our own like bubble vacuum where like we're all like, yeah, we agree, but we don't. I mean, realistically, like we'll all disagree on stuff all the time. Like, last time we were talking about the Kobe Bryant case, and
Yeah.
you and Nate were disagreeing with me on that one. But like, but that's how we have like good discussion. But when you don't have that, when you don't have like other people that you're regularly discussing through your content, I feel like it could be a lot easier to sort of just like walk down a path and then realize like, oh, I didn't check on this part or something, or like something, I had some kind of a blind spot or something escaped me. So I think the fact that like he got called out on a number of things, especially around Rittenhouse,
Mhm.
I think it kind of maybe like there were enough voices that were noticeable enough as a group that made him think like, maybe I need to double check or be a little bit more careful about how I analyze things moving forward. Possibly. I don't know. Maybe I'm just smelling my own perfume or something, but
Nice.
um so yeah. But anyway, let's I wanted to address this. Shireen says update on Elizabeth ER2 the second. She's King Charles has greeted crowds at Buckingham Palace and is going to address the nation later today. I did see that. I thought he was actually going to be addressing like now.
I thought I had heard
So
1 p.m. Eastern.
oh, okay. I saw like an hour ish ago that it was like 10 a.m. Eastern. So I was
Okay.
like, well, that sucks. I'm already scheduled. So, but speaking of being scheduled, but yeah, but that'll be interesting to tune in to see what sort of a tone he takes on, and what his first official remarks are for the public as king. That's crazy, crazy,
I'm
crazy, crazy.
I'm assuming the remarks will be something along the lines of, "This is a tough time for our nation. This is my
Hmm.
mother, who I loved, and who is an exemplar for all that is British, and I hope in some way to live up to her legacy and be a king in her model." Would be roughly what I would expect his remarks to be. So we'll see how close I am, I guess.
All right, all right. Amber Morgan, thanks so much for the super sticker. Very kind of you. William Hawkins says, yeah, we had our bells and 96 gun salute this afternoon. King's address will be around 6 p.m. I think that's UK time.
Yeah.
So because Shireen says here it'll be 1 p.m. Eastern if it's 6 p.m. UK. So that makes sense. That makes sense. So then in a few hours. So maybe well, I mean, yeah, we should be done with the live stream by then, I would think. Unless we decide to drag it out forever and keep people here hostage, but I doubt that. I usually try to keep these, hour and a half to 2 hours if possible. So anyway, well, let's get to the first subject. So first one I wanted to talk about is you remember the Nirvana Baby lawsuit, right?
I do.
Well, so I remember going through the complaint when it was filed, and I didn't go back to the live stream where we were talking about it, but I do remember looking at the live stream and being like, there's no way that this is going to survive a statute of limitations issue. Also, this just looks absolutely ridiculous because this is the guy who, I have this other page. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I've got the filing up, so I should probably first I'm gonna reset up my shared screens here so that I can show this. This is the guy who's like he's famous for being the Nirvana Baby, and the only way that you know that is because he literally goes around everywhere saying, "Hey, I'm the Nirvana Baby," right? Like you look at this man.
I'm sure he's used it as a pickup line at a bar more than once.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, and this photo was like he did a photo shoot to commemorate the 30th anniversary in
Yeah.
2016, 25th anniversary in 2016. And so, he decided that, what do you do after 25 years after you've done the photo shoot and you've done, this commemoration, that commemoration? Well, what do you do after the
You
30th year
you remember
anniversary?
you remember that you
Sue
like
them.
money? You remember that you like money and you'd like some of that money?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and I mean, this is the thing that's like, okay, so to talk about these kinds of issues, right? Because the allegations that he made are serious allegations, right? We're talking about illicit youth material. We'll put it that way because of the YouTube algorithm gods don't like certain words, and
Yeah.
we prefer to keep things monetized whenever possible.
Yes.
I don't like
Purient child-related imagery, yes. As
yes,
I usually go
exactly.
with.
Okay, that's a good one. For me it's usually just easiest to remember like illicit youth material.
Yeah.
But, so he's alleged that the cover album or the album cover art, it was a photo of him. His parents were there for the shoot. They consented.
Yep.
They were paid for it.
Yep.
I mean, obviously a baby of that age is nowhere near the age of consent for anything, right? Like
No.
he can't sign contracts at that age. He is, his parents are essentially, yeah, you could say exploiting their kid, sure. But, whether or not that does any harm to a kid like that is another question, another discussion. But basically what he's saying is just the fact of that photo existing and existing on the cover, and the fact that Nirvana profited from it so well and for so long. He says that they have essentially exploited him, that it is youth explicit material, despite the fact that it's not like a dirty rag that has a black cover over it that that you can only buy in certain parts of the store, right? Like this is like it's sold like literally any other album. Like record stores never put it in like a
No,
random
yeah.
part of the like they put it out just like any other
It's one of the
music album.
best-selling albums of all time.
It is. It is. And it's an iconic album cover. And so anyway, so he claimed that this was CP,
Yeah,
and
no, no.
that
No.
and the thing is, so in California, so he sued in California in federal court. The thing is, California is pretty protective of youth that have been exploited in that kind of a way.
Yes.
The statute of limitations doesn't start. The statute of limitations doesn't start running until they turn 18. So for him, he's like in his late 20s or something like that. He filed in 2000.
He's got
When
to
did
be
he
older
file
than
in
that.
2016?
He's got to be in his late 30s.
I'm sorry.
He's got
No,
40s.
31. 31.
He's only 31?
He was 31 in September 20. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, well,
30, yeah,
I feel
31.
old now.
Yeah.
That's a blow to my ego.
So yeah, so he's 31, and he claims that it caused him lifelong damage. The problem
Okay.
though is that I think it's like first 2006 is what comes to mind, that like 2006 would have been his statute of limitations. He missed it by 10 years. It wasn't even like a like an oops, maybe a week or a month or a day. Like literally he missed it by 10 years. And there is the ability for a plaintiff to file longer than the window of the statute of limitations for a particular cause of action, if they only later realize that something happened, or they only later realize that they've been harmed by it.
So not so much with him, I would think.
The problem for him is that it's well documented that he's been celebrating being the Nirvana Baby for so many years.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not like he didn't know he was the Nirvana Baby until 2016. So anyway, the case as predicted was dismissed, and he is for some reason appealing. I don't know what theory he plans to
I like money, I think is his
appeal.
theory. That's his appeal theory.
Well,
I like money.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, that's common, but you got to have some kind of an actual legal theory, though.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure, but we'll go through what the court basically said in their discussion when they dismissed the case. This is the trial court now. He hasn't actually filed the brief yet for the appeal. He just filed a notice of appeal. I mean, this was also just dismissed on September 2nd. This dismissal was filed on September 2nd. And then 4 days later, I think he filed a notice of appeal. So there's not going to be a brief for a long time, but I don't understand where he's like, where is this? Like, I mean, number one, why fight that hard for it? Number two, like, where do these resources come from? Because this costs a lot of money. There are a lot of questions. Mantha Johnny also, member chats don't show up in StreamYard. It's one of the most annoying things about StreamYard. But I wanted to highlight it. Said, I'm sure I'm not alone loving it if you kept going. So, oh, you mean a long live stream? That's funny. I appreciate that. So yeah. Amanda says that he wants clout. I mean, it seems like it. I mean, this is somebody who's been going on publicity tours and whatnot and photo shoots and all this stuff to celebrate, running around saying, hey, you know the Nirvana Baby? That's me. Free drinks at the bar, right? So okay, let's take a look at this dismissal. Here's what the court ultimately said. Defendant's primary argument is that plaintiff's Section 2255 claim is barred by the statute of limitations and should be dismissed as untimely. Section 2255A provides that any person who, while a minor, was a victim of violation of certain trafficking, SA or CP offenses, including Section 2252A, and who suffers personal injury as a result of such violation, regardless of the injury occurred while such person was a minor, may sue for civil damages. Section 2255B sets forth the statute of limitations period for claims brought pursuant to Section 2255A. Any action commenced under this section shall be barred unless the complaint is filed, 1, not later than 10 years after the date on which the plaintiff reasonably discovers the latter of 1, the violation that forms the basis of the claim, or 2, or B, the injury that forms the basis of the claim, or the action is barred unless the claim is filed not later than 10 years after the date on which the victim reaches 18 years of age. So if he's 31 this year, let's do some lawyer math. 31 this year minus 18. Oh gosh.
13 years.
13 years ago. What's 13 years ago?
2009.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah. 2009 would have been, man. Okay. Which means 2019 would have been the absolute latest, actually, that he would have been able to, right?
Yep.
Because he would have been 18. He would have been 18 in 2009.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So he didn't miss it by 10 years. He missed it by, what was I saying about 2006 earlier? He missed it not by 10 years, but he missed it by like 3. That's still a lot.
Yeah. I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but if you miss the statute of limitations by a day,
you do.
It's gone.
Too bad, so sad. It's true. Plaintiff relies on
it's a limit. It's a limitation. So when it's over, it's over.
Yeah. Simon Evans in the chat says, for an educated woman, your maths are rubbish. I know that for a fact. Math is magic and science is sorcery. This is why I was a history major and I went into law. So I appreciate folks that can do math and that can help me sort of stumble my way through it. I can do math. I just don't like it. Okay, anyway. So it says that plaintiff relies on subparts 1A and B. Defendants argue that plaintiff's claim is untimely under both subparts set forth in section 2255B1. I mean, already I'm kind of seeing that being teed up, right?
Yep.
Defendants first sorry.
I was just saying, yep, nope, this is a problem.
Defendants first contend that plaintiff's claim is untimely under section 2255B1A because plaintiff filed this action more than 10 years after he discovered the alleged predicate violations that occurred while he was a minor. According to defendants, the limitations period barring plaintiff from filing an action 10 years after he reasonably discovers the violation that forms the basis for the claim refers specifically to a violation that occurred while plaintiff was a minor, since that is the only violation that can serve as the basis for a section 2255 claim. And by the way, this is like, they're not even getting to the question of whether or not it actually is a violation, right? Like they're just doing the math to figure out if this is hypothetically a case that can be brought under the specter of the statute of limitations. So they're like the analysis. So if they're using the term violation, that's in quotations here because they're basically saying like, we're going to assume that there's a violation here, but we're not concluding that. So keep that in mind. Like they're not even getting to any of the substantive questions because why would they do that when first they have to figure out this other question about the statute of limitations? We're all about efficiency here, right? Because the courts are already backlogged. There's a lot of inefficiencies. So wherever we can, we try to be efficient.
Courts like efficiencies.
They do. Okay. Going back down here. In other words, under section 2255B1A, plaintiff must sue within 10 years of reasonably discovering a predicate violation that occurred while he was a minor. Thus, defendants argue, to the extent that Elden seeks a civil remedy based on his discovery of a quote-unquote violation committed by defendants, the violation had to have occurred no later than 2009, or when plaintiff turned 18 and was no longer a minor. Plaintiff does not dispute that he knew of the alleged violations committed by defendants while he was a minor more than 10 years before he filed this action. Well, there you go. He sunk his case.
Yep.
He sunk his own battleship.
This is where I go end of analysis. This is where I usually stop reading and stop caring because I'm like, well, I'm done. That's efficiency for you, right?
But the court went through the process of writing this. So what's their response to it, right? However, plaintiff, whose opposition largely ignores defendants' textual arguments regarding the statute of limitations period set forth in section 2255B1, contends that the section 2252B violation, which triggers the statute of limitations, can occur anytime during the plaintiff's majority. In other words, plaintiff's argument assumes that he can sue within 10 years of discovery any alleged violation listed in section 2255A, regardless of whether the violation occurred when he was a minor.
If it were a different violation, I guess, but if it's the same violation. So his argument is essentially, I discovered it today because it just occurred to me. I'm just seeing it now. It's like I also saw it 10 years ago, but I saw it today, so therefore it runs from today.
Yeah.
Okay, no, but thank you for playing.
It's not like. It's like if you think of like a defamation case, for example, you have a publication of a statement. Yeah. If the statute of limitations runs out on that, in order to bring a case on that statement, there would have to be a republication of the statement, right? Because that's a whole new claim. That's a whole new incident that you are alleging. And so that's how in the Depp case, they were able to reach all the way back to 2016 was because the publication from 2019 referred back to the stuff that happened back then. So that's why it was reaching all the way back there. So, yeah. Exactly.
Stupid hurts, Alita.
Yeah. It's one of those times where you're like, creative argument, But creative arguments don't necessarily win when you've got very strong black and white letter law. um, Although the production of the Nevermind album cover occurred over 30 years ago, many other violations have occurred since then and continue to the present day. In this
Like
case,
what?
well, here we go. In this case, multiple predicate acts are ongoing, and plaintiff is suing only for those violations occurring within 10 years of the filing of the SAC and since, referring to ongoing violations of predicate crimes. Spencer has newly discovered ongoing violations of predicate statutes in the years since the image of him was originally created. Is he saying that, like, because there's new, like, there are new albums that are printed that have the photo on there, that like each one of those is a
I don't know when the
violation?
last Nirvana album that was printed was, but it's got to have been a hot minute. I mean, for that album, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. Mm. However, contrary to plaintiff's contention, Section 2255 limits claims to any person who, while a minor, was a victim of a predicate violation. Exactly. You can't just claim violations as an adult and those just sort of like bootstrap you into this statute. The statute's very specific. You have to be a minor at the time that the violation occurs. Um,
I mean, by necessity, it can't be CP unless you're a child. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And thus, violations that occurred while plaintiff was no longer a minor, including those that are allegedly ongoing or continuing, cannot form the basis for a 2255 claim. Sorry, excuse me. I don't know what's going on with my voice. In short, because it is undisputed that plaintiff did not file his complaint within 10 years after he discovered a violation that he could form the basis for his Section 2255 claim, the court concludes that his claim is untimely under Section 2255B1A. I mean, that's just basic statutory interpretation, right? Like, that's just like literally reading the pages or the words that are on the page.
Yeah.
I mean, the court
doesn't require a whole lot of
underlines it.
analysis or meaning or interpretation. It's like, this is pretty clear. I think, yeah.
Oh man. Man, oh man. But what about the other one? Even though plaintiff's claim is untimely under Section 2255B1A, he may still proceed with his claim if his action was filed not later than 10 years after the date on which he reasonably discovered the injury that forms the basis for the claim. Now, this is the part that gets pretty humorous, right? Because we all know what he has known over the years about this album art, right?
Yeah.
Because of the fact that he's made such a big deal about it to the public.
Yeah.
Section 2255 provides that a person who is a victim of a predicate violation while a minor and who suffers personal injury as a result of such violation, regardless of whether the injury occurred while such person was a minor, may bring a claim under the statute. In this respect, the statute distinguishes between a violation, which must occur while a minor, and an injury, which may occur while the plaintiff is a minor or an adult.
So he's trying to say that every time like he sees the image, he's injured again. Well, the injury isn't that the photo was taken. The injury is his exposure to it every time.
Yeah.
Okay. No. Just no.
Defendants contend that plaintiff's claim is also untimely if measured from his discovery of the relevant injury, quote unquote.
Also, on just a purely factual level, I don't believe for 1 minute he's been injured in any sense, other than he would really like some more money. I don't think he's been injured.
Other than the money has stopped flowing.
Other than the money has stopped
really
flowing,
care anymore.
And the pickup line has stopped working, and the drinks have stopped flowing at the bar. Those are the only injuries he's, in reality, incurred, in my humble opinion. So those are not what the law was meant to protect.
Shireen says he got repaid for the anniversary issue.
Okay, well, yeah.
So he has definitely made money over the years for his likeness, for the use of his likeness. But it's not enough. It's never enough. Okay, defendants contend Oh, wait, did I already read? No, I haven't read this paragraph yet. Defendants contend that plaintiff's claim is also untimely if measured from his discovery of the relevant injury. According to defendants, the reference to injury in Section 2255B1B means the moment a plaintiff first discovers his victimization by the defendant.
Yep.
First discovers his
That's
victimization
that's what it
by the
means.
defendant.
Yep.
In other words, the first moment that he realizes he's the Nirvana baby and he's been exploited.
Correct. That's exactly what that means. You are correct.
Yeah. The injury that forms the basis for a Section 2255 claim is defined as the plaintiff's victimization by the defendants he has sued. According to defendants, plaintiff reasonably discovered the injury for purposes of the limitations period. That is, that he was a victim of defendants' allegedly criminal conduct well prior to August 2011. And that's because August 2011
Criminal
is
conduct,
10
please.
years before he sued. In other words, defendants contend that plaintiff knew of the alleged injuries caused by defendants well beyond the 10-year limitations period set forth in Section 2255B1B. Indeed, defendants note the anomaly of a plaintiff who has knowingly permitted the same criminal activities by the same known persons to continue against him for decades before suing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who has knowingly permitted the same criminal activities.
Knowingly permitted, extolled, promoted, proclaimed. Yeah. All those things.
Let's just note that the heavy shade in that phrase right there. Knowingly permitted the same criminal activities by the same known persons to continue against him for decades before suing. It's saying like because you can't have criminal activities where the victim, I mean, I guess you can, where the victim has knowingly consented to it, right? But where the crime involves consent,
yeah,
that's an essential element of it, right? So like, it's not a criminal activity if that supposed crime involves consent and that person consented to it.
correct.
So, yeah. So there's a bit of shade here, and the court agrees with that shade. Because the court could have paraphrased, but no, they decided to take that direct quote. Plaintiff offers no alternative definition of injury for purposes of Section 2255B1B or otherwise responds to defendant's argument. Instead, plaintiff appears to conflate the meaning of violation with injury by, for example, asserting that each distinct violation inflicts discrete injury, which starts the 10-year statute of limitations anew. By framing his argument in this manner, however, plaintiff collapses the two alternative limitations periods set forth in Section 2255B1. Further, under plaintiff's reading of Section 2255B1B, the clock continuously resets each day. A violation continues after plaintiff's minority, even if plaintiff has known for decades of the same criminal activities, i.e., injury caused by the same known persons. As defendants note, a statute that runs from the date of one's reasonable discovery cannot be suspended indefinitely while a plaintiff is fully on notice that a known person does the same thing to him in the same manner for more than 10 years. Here, plaintiff does not dispute that he knew of injuries arising from defendant's activities related to their use of his image on the Nevermind album cover more than 10 years before he filed his action. Thus, the court is persuaded that plaintiff is also barred from bringing this action under the limitations period set forth in Section 2255B1B.
Unfortunately, my friend, when it comes to the statute of limitations, there is in fact something in the way. I know that you are one baby to another, saying that you're lucky to met me, and it's your duty to drain me, but though we are on a plane, there is no recourse for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the kind of case, it's the kind of opinion that you read it from the court and you're like, seems about done. This seems like this is about pretty solidly resolved, right? Because it's not like there's like some nuance to it and you're like, well, the policies, or there's something in the interpretation of the language that could be one way or another. No, like this is pretty black and white. Like it's pretty simple that the way that you read the statute, the court did it in a very straightforward way, and he's outside the statute of limitations. So I have no idea like what kind of legal garbage is going to be in this appeal brief that he's planning on filing at some point to argue that I mean, because you can't argue that the statute of limitations should be extended as a policy matter. What you do is you do what Evan Rachel Wood did and go to Congress or go to the state legislature and say, hey, this needs to be extended.
Uh-huh. And if you come to me, I'll just laugh in your face, but that's okay.
Yeah. So, but this guy, yeah, this seems like this is a one of those times where the court got it right, got it very, very right, and the guy needs to go away. He needs to go away. He needs to stop misusing, abusing the legal process, the legal system, and let these band members and the other people that were the defendants in this case, let them go on with their lives. Like, don't make them regret literally forever that they chose you to be on the album cover.
Yeah. He is not one of the good time people now. I am a face in the crowd, all dressed up and laughing loud. I can talk to him and mock the hell out of him, which is all the things that I'm doing this morning. Fantastic.
Yep.
There's a deep cut for you, for the people paying attention at home.
Exactly. So any other thoughts on
No, I think I've exhausted my puns.
Okay. All right. So next up is talking about Courtney Clenny. Do you know about this one? The OnlyFans murder case?
I've been following a little bit, yes.
So she had an evidentiary hearing a few days ago, and where this was her first appearance in court, and her attorney was trying to argue that there should be no evidence that is let out to the public, that that should be, that the media shouldn't get access to any of the evidence in this particular case. Part of it, I can understand some parts of it, because they were like, well, there's a lot here that's like, she's got hundreds of thousands of text messages like any millennial or any Gen X or Gen Z, or sorry, not Gen X, that's about Gen Z, or like just like any young person today. She's got like everything is on her phone. She's got material on her phone that is intended for her work, which is my understanding is not for Instagram, it's for OnlyFans. So you can understand the sort of like level of sensitivity that's in there. And that, that she basically, they were like, it's not relevant. And this stuff shouldn't be released to the public, or what have you. And it's also highly, highly prejudicial, which those are great reasons for why to keep it out of evidence at trial, but not necessarily good reasons for keeping it out of the public eye at all.
Right.
So,
and we're seeing a somewhat similar issue to this, at least in part, in the Daybell Vallow case in Idaho, where the judge has basically sealed the hell out of everything and preventing the public from learning things, like whether they should be offered at trial in evidence, and what the public has a right to know. I mean, we're supposed to have an open court system. It's supposed to be available for public trials. And the public has a right to examine this evidence and determine whether or not justice is being done and what even justice looks like.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think that it's even, I mean, I want to say for all cases, but I feel like for criminal cases, it's even more important, because you've got people's lives on the line. And so, you know, we should have the ability to access our criminal justice system to know how it's working or maybe not working, or, you know, like, so being able to analyze these kinds of cases, by being able to see the evidence as it is handed over from the prosecution to the defense is very, very helpful. You know, because the media, you know, we gets a bad rap for a lot of things. But the Miami Herald actually showed up specially at this hearing and was like, no, 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 there's something called the First Amendment. And
Oh yeah,
we
that
want,
pesky thing.
yeah, yeah, I know that damn First Amendment that Americans love so much. Um, but yeah, the court ended up denying the request by her attorney, and basically saying that there was a 3-part test, a Lewis test, and I should have my notes up. 3-part test from a Florida Supreme Court case called Miami Herald Publishing Company v. Lewis, where they said that in order to close a pretrial hearing, there have to be 3 things required. So first, it's where a closure is necessary to prevent a serious and imminent threat to the administration of justice. Doesn't seem to be present here based on like the information that's come out. 2, there has to be no less restrictive alternative measures than closure are available. 3, closure will in fact achieve the court's purpose. So it seems like if they are particularly concerned about the a potential jury being prejudiced, you know, like tainting the jury pool and whatnot. I mean, that's a concern in literally any of these cases that get
Yeah.
publicized, right? Like we talked about that. There was no higher concern for a case than one like Depp v. Heard, where it's like people actually knew about at least one of the parties involved right before the lawsuit. So it's like people had an idea, people had certain preconceived notions, you know, whether good, bad, or indifferent. People knew about who at least Depp was, if not Amber Heard. So that's always going to be a concern with these kind of public trials. But uh the fact of the matter is that, like, you know, if her attorney is concerned about her work and the kind of things that she did to make money before this all went down, if they're concerned about that influencing a jury, that's also why you have a jury selection process, is so that you can get people that are hopefully a bit more open-minded and are not just going to try to convict her based on that.
Yeah, I mean, I have no particular problem with, I mean, at least in first instance, about keeping information about her profession out of the trial, because it doesn't really matter very much one way or another. You know, the issue is whether or not she killed her boyfriend and stabbed him. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, what she did for a living doesn't have a lot to do with that. It certainly doesn't speak to character in a way that's addressable in any sort of court hearing. But that being the case about what's presentable trial, it's relevant for our discussion outside of trial. And as you point out, the remedy for this is just a bigger voir dire. That's how you do it. How do you get a fair jury? You do a voir dire. What happens if you have a public case with a lot of public information? You just do more voir dire. You have a bigger veneer. You have a bigger master panel. You ask more questions. You ask more detailed questions. You strike more liberally.
Yeah.
Right? You just do the same thing you would do in an ordinary case. You just do more of it, and it takes a little longer. That's how you solve this problem. It's not a new problem. We fixed it. We figured this out long ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And to answer from the chat, Angela says, "What's this trial about?" I'm so sorry. I did not do any of the usual background that I do for these stories. So Courtney Clenny, she's on the thumbnail with her now deceased boyfriend, Christian Obumzeli, who she admittedly she killed. She claims that she was acting in self-defense. She has been charged with murder. This happened on April 3rd, 2022, and she was just recently arrested. She was it all went down in Miami, Florida. She was arrested in Hawaii, I think in I can't remember which, maybe on Maui. Is that
Yeah.
where she was? Her attorney said that she was in like a rehab facility for I think PTSD and substance abuse or something like that. So yeah. But I mean, regardless, like where she was when she was arrested isn't actually particularly relevant, because it wasn't like she was on the run from the cops. Like she was they essentially they didn't put any restrictions on her, so she can go wherever she wants if they don't put restrictions on her. But anyway, they did arrest her, and now she's being charged. And so she's going through that whole process.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why why this evidence issue is coming up is because of the fact that the prosecution did release that video footage of them in an elevator from, I think, like a month or 2 months before, a few months before, where you can see she gets into the elevator and then he comes in afterwards and she's like screaming at him, and then she starts really just laying into him, and you can tell that he's, and I'm characterizing it without showing it. I mean, I showed it before. I guess I could show it again. After the ad goes through. But yeah, so you guys can see here. I don't want to show the full news clip of it. Okay, here we go.
Last I checked, there were a couple people that lived in Miami-Dade, so I don't think it's going to be particularly difficult to find a jury. And in all quite honesty, who have never heard of this case or anything involving it.
Oh, of course.
I mean, come on. If there's a couple people that live there, you'll have no trouble finding people who have never heard of this by the time it gets to trial. I
would definitely agree. And I think that Miami is also the kind of place that is not exactly puritanical, right? So it's like there's a lot of different lifestyles that you can find in Miami that are alternative, that are different, that like you can probably find people who are not going to judge her for her work. But yeah, so this is okay. And yes, thank you, Mantha Johnny, in the chat. Fair warning. So trigger warning about this, because she's going to lay into him. So if you have any encounters in your history with DV or anything like that, be forewarned. But I'm just going to show this a little bit. I mean, it's a very short clip anyway, but basically,
take a look at this new video of her and her former boyfriend, now dead, Christian Umbaselli, getting into a heated argument inside an elevator months before that
heated argument.
Our cameras were rolling in the courtroom as Instagram model Courtney Clenny learned what's next in the case against her. She will now be extradited back to Florida, accused of—
Oh yeah, so this was actually back in August. This video here,
yeah.
But yeah, so that was what got released. And so, and as an attorney, if I'm her defense attorney, yeah, I'm really concerned about that video getting out there, and that video potentially being
that video is coming into trial. I would imagine that video is coming into trial. It goes to show behavior, motive. It goes to show a lot of things. It's coming in.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, because there are other reports of other neighbors that have said, you know, they got into fights all the time. I could
apparently
hear them
two
from
floors
several
up.
floors up.
2 floors up, they could hear him. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah. So,
Ashley, thank you.
And here is also.
And since someone asked about extradition, yes, we do extradite between states. The difference, of course, in the United States, it's pretty much a formality, as opposed to between countries where it can become more of a faff. So if you're in one state and another state wants you, yeah, they call it an extradition process. But as long as they have a warrant that's been signed off by the authority of the one state, the other state is bound to extradite. It's full faith and credit clause of the Constitution, for those of you who care about such things, right? Every state is required to give full faith and credit to the judgments of another state. So if one state says, we have issued a warrant against this person, we want them back, the other state is required to honor that, as long as, you know, the formalities are done, which of course they always are. So it's extradition is usually waived, because fighting extradition is just a complete waste of time. Because it's going to be granted. It's always granted.
Right. So here's
between countries, your mileage may vary substantially, but within the United States, not so much.
Depends on the relationship, right? So
is there an extradition treaty? Is a good place to start when it comes to between countries.
That is a good starting point. So here's a little bit of a clip from the hearing.
Her attorneys asked a judge to limit the amount of evidence revealed to the public, worried it will jeopardize the case when it goes to trial. It comes after the state attorney's office released a shocking video of Clenny attacking her boyfriend just months before he was killed. Her attorney says the case has gained so much publicity that releasing any more evidence could make jury selection a complicated process. He says much of the evidence is not relevant to the case.
To vigorously defend my client, I'm not going to stand back and let her be a punching bag in the media.
Meanwhile,
as he was a punching bag,
this case needs to be tried in this courtroom with the protections that I know Your Honor will give us to a fair and impartial trial.
Clenny, who was handcuffed and dressed in an orange jumpsuit, shook her head as a judge denied the motion to limit the evidence shared. Her lawyer says they're looking forward to trial and have evidence to show that Clenny was fighting for her life the night she stabbed Abumseli.
Well, apparently she was on the phone at the time that she was doing the stabbing. So we have an ear witness to
talking to her mom.
Talking to her mom as the stabbing was occurring. So mom will be appearing as an ear witness to some of this. So that should be fun and exciting.
100%. That case is going to be wild. So
we'll cover it.
And
right.
Also, one of the things that was interesting.
Do you want that trial for your channel? Because I've claimed enough trials.
I think
for my channel.
I would very much like to live stream this one.
You can have that one. I think it's only fair.
No, I think I definitely want to live stream this one for sure, because it's just there are enough inconsistencies in the things that she has said that I'm kind of amazed that she's even pleading, claiming self-defense. But hey, fair. This is why we have a judicial system, is if I'm skeptical of what she said because of the other inconsistencies. Because, for example, she claimed when the police arrived on that night and she gave her story of what had happened, she claimed that she was acting in self-defense and she threw a knife at him. And that, that it ended up, piercing him and ended up killing him. She threw it in self-defense. Right. Then the medical examiner came back however many weeks later and was like,
no,
that doesn't fit, because of the fact that we're talking about a 6-inch long knife that was 3 inches into him. You don't get that by unless you're like Black Widow or something, that doesn't happen. And
even if you are, that's still murder, because you're throwing it with the intent, so you're there.
Yeah. So, okay. Thanks, Secret Miss Squirrel. Just put it on subscriber only mode. So there are enough inconsistencies there. And one of the things that was interesting that I had heard about this hearing was that her attorney, Prieto, one of the things that he argued about that footage that we watched, about the elevator footage, that he was claiming that her argument about that footage was that was also self-defense, because she was trying to keep him from going into the apartment to get a weapon or something like that. That's what she was trying to do by laying into him.
Bullocks in favor in honor of our friends of the UK. No, I don't think so. No, none of those things. You're going to jail, honey. Yeah. Agreed.
So I think that this is going to be a very interesting trial to watch. I really want to hear what the mom says about what she heard. I fully would anticipate that she would be very protective of her daughter, especially if she was the one that her daughter called during this incident. As opposed to calling the cops, as opposed to calling, literally anyone, the fact that her mom was the one that she called means that she probably has a very close relationship with her mom. And so, not to say that every mom is going to perjure herself for her child, but I would anticipate that there are a lot of moms out there that would go to some very great lengths for her child.
Yeah. Well, we can creatively reinterpret without necessarily perjuring. It's like we let ourselves open to some possibilities.
Sure. Yeah. We can,
A
use some-
creative word choice here,
exactly.
a framing device there, no problem.
Yeah. So anyway, but let's see, was there anything else that I had wanted to talk? Yeah, I mean, I also, I don't see a situation where, I don't know. I mean, do you think that it's possible to keep out what she does for a living? Because I
In the
feel
trial,
like that's,
probably.
I mean, at the very least, they have to get into her being an influencer because of the fact that it's integral to the timeline as to what happened, according to the charging instrument. Like they went through like the facts, basically, like, he went out during the afternoon for a couple hours. He came back with Subway. She was doing an Instagram
Once again,
live.
Subway makes an appearance of these things. So Subway eat fresh while doing murder or faking hate crimes or committing offenses against children. It's useful for all kinds of situations.
Poor Subway. They're really getting the short end of a few sticks here. But yeah, so like her doing stuff on the internet, doing like engagements with fans and with viewers and stuff, is like there are several points in the timeline of that day where she does stuff that it's like they kind of have to explain what she does. At the very least, talking about her being an influencer, maybe they could keep it generic and say that she's an influencer, on that she was doing this stuff on Instagram. She's an influencer on the internet or something, and then not get into OnlyFans. But I don't know. I mean, if there's any chance at all that might come in and I'm the defense, I'm being the first to rip that Band-Aid off.
Oh yeah, well, if I'm the defense, I'm filing a motion in limine to prevent that from coming in. And if I can't, I would agree with you that I would bring it up first, probably, because I'm not going to win on an appellate issue down the road. So I might as well rip it off first. So yeah, if I can't win the motion in limine, then I would agree.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, that's an interesting case, and as it continues to develop, I'm like, my antennas are just.
We'll just call her a garden implement instead.
A what?
We'll call her a garden implement.
A garden implement. Oh, that's good. That's a good one. I appreciate that. So the next case and the final case for us to talk about is Pitt v. Heard. The extended saga of the divorce case between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Brangelina are still trying to fish her, and they are continuing to fight, and the fight continues to heat up. I really didn't expect to see anything new until next month, because Brad Pitt filed essentially a secondary lawsuit amidst their divorce, because they've been in custody battles. By the time they finish with this case, the kids will all be adults and there will be no custody issues to figure out. Yeah. But they still will have the money issue. So this is partly what this lawsuit is dealing with, is the money issue, and particularly the business that they kind of created together in France out of their Chateau Miraval. And I think Chateau Miraval, right? That's what it was called. But yeah,
they had a winery together.
Exactly.
As a business.
It was a winery, and it sounds like they didn't have. I mean, this is the part that is like crazy to me, is that based on the claims that Pitt has made in his complaint. I mean, he's got now a first amended complaint, and I'll pull that up in just 1 second here. But like, it looks like they didn't really have a formalized agreement.
Yeah.
Which is wild, because we're talking about millions of dollars here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just you don't need contracts once everyone is getting along. Contracts are for when things go wrong. And that's why we have contracts, to help specify things. So yeah, And then when you don't have contracts, this is what we lead to. It leads to fights and hurt feelings. And yeah.
So his complaint basically.
How did Luxembourg get into this? Because I'm seeing that in the amended complaint.
Yeah, the Luxembourg Civil Code. I actually don't know. I have not yet done a deep dive on this particular complaint. But I was planning on doing a deep dive of the cross complaint because she has now filed her own cross complaint, which was the surprise, because the reason why everything was supposed to be on ice until October was because the court allowed a stipulation from the parties, basically to say that Brad Pitt was saying that he was having a hard time serving the first amended complaint on the other defendants here, because he has not just sued Angelina Jolie. He's sued, as you can see here, he's sued a whole bunch of people, including some like Russian investors, and there's a Russian company here that is involved, because what he's claiming is that he had a first right of refusal if she decided to sell her half of the business, and he had a first right of refusal, and she did not allow him that first right of refusal. She just sold her interest,
and he's able to point to a contract that says he has a first right of refusal. Of course.
Well, that's why we have a breach of implied in fact contract, breach of quasi contract, breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. I mean, breach of good, implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, that's in any contract, right? Any kind of agreement. But anytime you have like usually, so when I'm arranging my causes of action in any lawsuit, if I'm the plaintiff's attorney, usually I want to have the strongest ones be like the first 1, 2, 3. It's kind of like, like when you're looking at the ingredients of any processed foods, you want to look at like the top 3 ingredients, like, because that's usually what's going to make up the bulk of what this like product is. The bulk of this lawsuit is going to be usually made up of like the first few causes of action. Oftentimes they'll tack on other ones because they're related somehow, and you might as well toss them in. But we've got along with that, abuse of rights under Article 6-1 of the Luxembourg Civil Code. And then tortious interference with contractual relations, tortious interference with prospective business relations, and a constructive trust. Sandy Ramirez says that Luxembourg is where the wine is manufactured. That makes sense. Okay. That makes sense. I probably would know that if I had dug deeper into this complaint. But basically, yeah, so his well, let's go into, this shouldn't be too long. Yeah, you know what? Let's do the introduction here so we can go through the basic facts here. In 2008, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie purchased a controlling interest in Chateau Miraval SA, a French company comprising a home and vineyard in the south of France. Pitt and Jolie purchased the chateau as a home to share with their children and the vineyard as a family business. They agreed they would never sell their respective interests in Miraval without the other's consent. The couple spent the holidays at Miraval and with their children and were married there in 2014. The vineyard became Pitt's passion, and a profitable one, as Miraval, under Pitt's stewardship, has grown into a multi-million-dollar global business and one of the world's most highly regarded producers of rosé wine. I do like a good rosé, I'm not going to lie. Jolie, meanwhile, contributed nothing to Miraval's success. Of course, this is coming from Brad Pitt's side, right? So, like, this is going to be framed in a way that is as beneficial to Brad Pitt and as detrimental to Angelina Jolie as possible. So this is the factual, allegations, but also like framed in a way that's argumentative. Instead, she allowed Pitt to pour money and sweat equity into the business in reliance on the consent right she owed him and a right of first refusal her business entity owed his.
I don't know why that sentence rubs me the wrong way, but it does. She allowed Pitt to pour money and sweat equity. Oh, she deigned to permit Brad Pitt to make the decision to put his labor into something, like he needs her permission or something. In furtherance of the business interest, I'd like to note. So to the extent there is any sort of duty to her as a co-owner, he is putting money and sweat equity in order to build the business, and she is deigned to allow it. I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way, man.
I definitely understand that. I also think that like if they are framing this in such a way as like by saying that she, he was devoting all of his energy and money into this. She knew that he was doing that, and she fully anticipated just screwing him over entirely by just tossing all of that aside. Like I can understand like that argument, but yeah, it's your point is very well taken about the framing of that statement. In October 2021, Jolie purported to sell her interest to Tenuta Del Mondo, a hostile third-party competitor bent on taking control of Miraval.
That's normally what purchasing implies. Yes, I'd like to own the thing now. That'd be great.
Hostile third-party competitor. Yeah, I mean, this is like we are really getting a strong flavor here for how Pitt's side feels, right? Like I feel like, let's see, who are the
flavor is almost as strong as the wine.
Let's see, we've got Kendall Brill and Kelly LLP, Wachtell, Lipton, Rosen and Katz. I'm not familiar with these firms, but one is an LA firm, the other one's
if they don't offer bottles of wine as exhibit for the jury sampling, man, I'll tell you what, this is a bad trial. I just want you to sample the full weight of it. So we're gonna have a wide pairing now with our jury arguments. That's a good one. That's a new argument strategy.
Awesome. Yeah, right. We're having a wine and cheese tasting along with opening statements. That would be my actually, if it does go to trial and it's ever,
can I do that?
Probably.
Can I do a wine and cheese pairing with opening statements? Because I was like,
I would do that, right? Like that would be like I would totally theme it up for the trial, right? Like I doubt it because this is LA here. Like this is LA state court, I think. So this is wait, let me just double check. Yeah, it is LA Superior Court. So, they are so hesitant to publicize these trials. So, but like if they did, I would totally wine and cheese it up. I would have like different pairings for like different parts of the trial. I feel like I would have a lot of fun with that. Okay. Anyway,
you have a pop lieutenant across from the courthouse.
Your Honor, can we please have a break for the day as the jury is sloshed? Oh man. Yeah. Okay, let's get back to what he's claiming here. So she contributed absolutely nothing. Okay. She allowed him to pour money and sweat equity into the business. In October 2021, Jolie purported to sell her interest to Tenuta Del Mondo, a hostile third-party competitor bent on taking control of Miraval. Tenuta Del Mondo is indirectly owned and controlled by Yuri Shefler, the Russian billionaire who controls the Stoli Group and whose flagship Russian vodka, Stolichnaya, has been the object of boycotts throughout the world. The U.S. Treasury Department designated Shefler as an oligarch in the Russian Federation in an unclassified report to Congress made pursuant to the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act of 2017. Okay, so I mean, missing from this is the reason why, right? Like there's nothing here saying like the reason why is because of the whole Russia-Ukraine conflict, right?
Yeah.
Like as opposed to like, but by leaving that out, it definitely makes it sound like, ooh, this is a really bad dude, right? Like this is a bad Russian man. Which I mean, maybe he is. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know this particular individual differently from anyone else. So I don't know if he's good or bad or indifferent. But he does seem to have quite a bit of power if he is a Russian oligarch, and quite a bit of money as well. But I can see how also the other implication to it could be that she had some sort of awareness that that this would happen, right? That any business partners with any sort of Russian oligarchs would be detrimentally served, because of the things that are going on in the world. However,
I'm at this point, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised we're not trying to make it sound like Jolie is knowingly supporting the Russian Federation at the expense of Ukraine or something. As long as we're going for full bar character assassination, not only is she robbing Pitt of his sweat equity, but also suppressing the people of Ukraine. Throw that in there.
it gets very close to that, right? Like you
Yeah.
can feel the drum beat in the
Yeah.
background of the war drum beat in the background is being hit. But you know, but of course you have to think back of like
while we're at
like
it, why don't
the
we just say
historical
that
timeline.
while we're at it, why don't we say that she did it for the purpose of funding the Russian efforts in Ukraine? That'd be good.
Except that this, you know, this right here, that's why they don't mention the you know, Russia-Ukraine conflict, is because this predates that, right? October
She
2021
knew,
is
man.
before
She knew.
they, you know, she was in with the Russian generals. She knew of their plans, you know, like the Russian soldiers, you know, the foot soldiers who themselves
Yep.
thought that they were
Yep.
apparently doing an operation and that was
Yep.
it. And then all of a sudden they're in a war, you know, like they may not have known, but Angelina Jolie definitely knew back in October 2021 that in February or March 2022 that they were going to be doing that. So you know, and this is not to you know, don't, if you're watching this, don't take any sort of comments on, you know, what this means for, like, you know, what we're saying about the, you know, the merits or tragedies of that particular conflict. This is just, we are just talking about the weird sort of like scooping in of this external thing that really seems to have almost nothing to do with the actual potential violations of law and actual harms that may have resulted from it, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to make some jokes to point out,
Yeah.
like, a lot of this is kind of irrelevant to the cause of action because it shouldn't matter who is the one buying, like, from this point of view, because if the argument is there's a right of first refusal and that was denied, then it really doesn't matter who the person is buying. It could be a Russian, it could be a Ukrainian, it could be an American. It really shouldn't matter legally. So the reason I'm making these jokes, which I thought were pretty obviously jokes, but, you know, just for the humor impaired, they're jokes. The reason I'm making these jokes is because it's just completely irrelevant. It's character assassination that's irrelevant to the legal issue. It's like, well, did you have a right of first refusal or didn't you? If you did, then you shouldn't be selling it to anyone. If you didn't, then you can sell to anybody. So either way, I don't care legally. So why are we bringing Russian oligarchs into this and bringing this sort of nefarious implication into something that has nothing to do with the legal issues at hand?
Which there are other aspects of, like, other, and I'm sure it'll get into it in this section too. But if it doesn't, you know, there are other reasons for why Pitt claims that it's not a good idea that she sold to this particular individual. And that is that he's losing his the ability to make the decisions for what previously was his baby, you know, like he's been the one at the helm of this ship for this company.
Again, it's irrelevant to the legal issue. Either she has the right to sell or she doesn't. If there's a right of first refusal, then it doesn't matter. If there's not, she can make an unfortunate sale. You can sell to someone. You can make a stupid sale. Companies do it all the time. They make bad deals.
As far as the legality is concerned, you're absolutely correct. I think that as far as the harms are concerned, it's relevant to that.
Maybe
because that's to say, like, why do you care who she sells it to? Like, why does that even matter in the first place? Like, how does that hurt you in any way? So, you know, the way that you explain it is like, well, you know, now he's got somebody else that maybe wants to take this company in a completely different direction than what he does. And this is going to, like, just completely tear apart the entire company because now he's not able to do what he wanted to do and the vision that he had for the company and that he had been putting in so much work into for years, you know, moving forward, right? Like, he's essentially being forced to do business with someone that he may or may not want to do business with. I mean, according to the lawsuit, it says he definitely doesn't want to. I mean, but in real life, maybe you know, maybe he just wants to screw Angelina over, you know, with this or something because he's pissed at her because they're in a divorce, and, you know, who knows. I'm really not on either side on this one.
Accusations are flying. It recently came out that she had sent her FOIA to get information from the government relating to some sort of purported assault that Pitt did on a plane or something.
Asking why he wasn't arrested.
I can think of so many reasons why off the top of my head, but okay. Yeah, so that recently came to light. So there appears to be some ill feelings between these two.
Oh, for sure. Ill
Yeah.
feelings abound. So, but let's see if we can wrap up this section here, and then we'll get
Okay.
to her cross complaint. Jolie pursued and then consummated the purported sale in secret, purposely keeping Pitt in the dark and knowingly violating Pitt's contractual rights. By doing so, Jolie sought to seize profits she had not earned and returns on an investment she did not make. Also, through the purported sale, Jolie sought to inflict harm on Pitt. Jolie knew and intended that Scheffler and his affiliates would try to control the business Pitt had built and to undermine Pitt's investment in Miraval. And just as Jolie envisioned, that is exactly what Scheffler has done. Since claiming to acquire Jolie's interest in Miraval, Scheffler has launched a hostile takeover of the wine business, destabilizing Miraval's operations and seeking access to Miraval's confidential and proprietary information for the benefit of his competing enterprise. At the same time, Miraval's association with Scheffler, who has gained notoriety through cutthroat business tactics and dubious professional associations, jeopardizes the reputation of the brand Pitt so carefully built. All of this is the direct result of Jolie's unlawful and tortious conduct. In violation of the parties' agreement, Jolie has sought to force Pitt into partnership with a stranger, and worse yet, a stranger with poisonous associations and intentions. A lot of just strong language here. The purported sale is unlawful and on the multiple grounds set out below. The purported sale breaches the agreement between Jolie and Pitt that formed the foundation of the couple's investment in Miraval. The purported sale violates the contractual expectations of Pitt and Jolie and entities they own established through the 14 years since they bought Miraval. The purported sale deprives Pitt of his right to enjoy the home he established for his family and to oversee the business he developed from scratch. And the purported sale tortiously interferes with Pitt's interest in the enterprise and his agreement with Jolie and that of the entities through which the former couple effected their investment in Miraval. So,
Well,
then it goes through like in more detail, but I think that about covers it.
If this was a U.S. asset, and I honestly don't know the degree to which it reads over, but the first thought I have in my mind is, wait a second, this is an agreement concerning land, and there's nothing in writing. Problems, right? Because we're buying a winery. That's a piece of property, right? And so there's a statute of frauds problem, is what I'm alluding to. And it's like the fact that there's nothing in writing. It's like, what do you want this contract to do? It's like there's issues, and if this was U.S. law, the degree to which, because it's France, that implies, I don't know.
Although I'm not sure that the controversy is really about the land itself. It's about the business that they created on top of the land. So I think that statute of frauds, you could still have a potential statute of frauds issue just because of the value of the company.
Yeah.
But
the contract and contemplation of marriage. How about that? There's another one for you. Because it's it's a marital asset.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's another one. Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And now I'm having bad bar exam flashbacks. Let's move on.
All right, let's get a couple super chats first, and then we'll move on to the cross complaint to see what does she say in return. Nicholas Starrow, unionist labor law, says human skin is surprisingly tough to cut deep through. A friend told me. Ooh, I don't necessarily want to know the details behind that story, but I'm sure it's a very fascinating one. Thanks for sharing that. Nicholas Starrow, unionist labor law, says Russia's invasion started 2014. Crimea, anyone? Yes, but the full like media attention frenzy and the flags in people's profiles and stuff like that didn't happen until February 2022 or March 2022. I think it was late February, right? Yeah, so you're absolutely not wrong on that those activities started much earlier than this past year. But in terms of like the sanctions, I think that like that's what he's referring to, the sanctions and the public outcry and sort of like this like unified like outrage directed towards Russia, like that didn't happen in 2014 or at any point before this latest conflict. So, but very very well taken. So, all right. So now we've got Angelina Jolie coming on back with a surprise counterclaim, and she has decided to sue some more people. So she's got not only countersuing Brad Pitt and his company Mondo Bongo LLC, which is a hilarious name, I have to admit. It's one of those that just like it really rolls off the tongue and it's kind of silly, and I kind of want to know the backstory for it. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a movie reference to something, but I have no idea. But anyway, I'm kind of intrigued. Then we've got some. It looks like we've got some possible French families or something. You know, SAS Miraval Provence, SAS families. And also, I apologize in advance to any French speakers. I know Mr. Byte speaks French, and my French pronunciations are terrible. I will admit that. So any French speakers, you know,
all you have to do to pronounce French is forget half the letters and say it with disdain, and you're there.
Not necessarily true, but I yeah, so that's one of my items of you know, things that I'm gonna have to learn one of these days is French and the proper pronunciation of French words and names and terms and stuff. So anyway, okay. But yeah, so it seems like she's added in a bunch of other people to this in addition to the people that he brought in. So now it's like we've got this whole crowd of parties that's going to be a lot to manage for discovery at the very least. I mean, this is a lot of paper that's going to be, a lot of trees are going to die for this case. You know, to put it one way. So okay, so these are the claims that she's got. Defendant and cross complainant Nouvelle LLC's cross complaint against cross defendants William B. Pitt, blah 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 blah. For okay. First one, tortious interference with contractual relations, tortious interference with prospect of economic advantage, breach of the duty of good faith, trespass to chattels, abuse of right, in the alternative, aiding and abetting tortious interference with contractual relations, and in the alternative, aiding and abetting tortious interference with prospective economic advantage. Woo! Okay, so she's got none of the breach of implied in fact contract, no implied contracts that she's saying were breached, but basically he's interfering with some sort of a business advantage that she has by doing something. And if it if what she's saying is that he's you know, interfering by filing the lawsuit, my first response is anti-slap. So we'll see. I haven't looked into the details here, so we'll take a look at it. One thing to note here is that she's got some big law firm people here on her side. So I wasn't familiar with the other firms that are representing Pitt. I'm sure they're fine, but Cravath is like one of the biggest of the big firms. So she's got some big guns behind her. I will say that. So we expect no Elaine Bredehoff bullcrap here in this case. This is real stuff here. Okay. Nature of the action. Let's read through. Oh yeah, she's got even chapters here.
Ooh.
Okay. So we are going to, she's got a whole, okay, this is
do you like that with the chapters thing? I don't know, man.
I do. I like that it organizes things. You know, it's the same, you know, for me, it feels the same as like when viewers are like, I like your live streams, but please put timestamps in it because I want to know where things are. You know, it's just, it's helpful. Okay. Let's settle in for this. What is she going to say? Let's get the tea here. Okay. Ever since his former wife, Angelina Jolie, filed for divorce from him in 2016, Brad Pitt has been waging a vindictive war against her and Nouvelle, her former investment company. Nouvelle files these counterclaims to seek redress for the illegal and malicious actions of Pitt and his allies to injure Nouvelle by devaluing its investments and depriving it of its proper role in the management of Chateau Miraval, the world-famous producer of rosé wine. Among other things, Pitt masterminded a so far successful plan to seize control of Chateau Miraval, which Pitt's investment company, Mondo Bongo, equally co-owns with Nouvelle. Pitt has frozen Nouvelle out of Chateau Miraval and treats it as is his personal fiefdom. After quietly, it's like we've got like landed estates, we've got, you know, like these, like it feels like they're like this is becoming this like long narrative of like kings and queens and princes and stuff, you know, like actual royalty here. We've got oligarchs, we've got, you know, like Brad Pitt turning this into a fiefdom. This is the language here is very spicy. I'm already enjoying it. Okay. After quietly hijacking the highly profitable Chateau Miraval, Pitt wasted its assets, spending millions on vanity projects, including more than $1 million on swimming pool renovations and other funds restoring a recording studio. Worse yet, Pitt has attempted to turn over 50% of the ownership of Chateau Miraval's most valuable assets, the Miraval trademarks, to his good friend Mark Perrin for free. These actions took millions of dollars of value from Nouvelle and put it in the pockets of Pitt and his friends. Okay. All right. I mean, I will say swimming pool renovations, if the swimming pool already existed when they bought it, that probably is something that needed to be done. Either you get rid of the pool entirely or you renovate it because pools require maintenance. So restoring a recording studio, was that also on the property? I don't know. That's interesting. I would like to know more details about this swimming pool and this recording studio. But the Miraval trademarks, that's also very interesting here, because if he's saying that like he wants ownership of this company and he wants, you know, control and whatnot, just giving away trademarks for free to friends is interesting. I want to know more. Okay. In an effort to cover up his illegal and reprehensible conduct, Pitt has taken the offensive, employing a classic blame the victim strategy. He and his representatives have asserted to Nouvelle's representatives that Jolie, Nouvelle, and Nouvelle's current owners are responsible for a business dispute that he instigated and that he continues to escalate. But at every turn, Pitt has been the aggressor. In addition to seizing control of Chateau Miraval, he preemptively sued Nouvelle in Luxembourg to invalidate a contract he freely signed years ago and under which he benefited greatly, and he has rejected all efforts by Nouvelle to cooperate with him unless he is given full de jure control of Chateau Miraval, in addition to the de facto control that he currently exercises. This is a bit of a different story.
Very.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like they are definitely, according to Team Jolie here, Brad Pitt is like this like power hungry kind of guy who's you know, like it seems like everything that he claimed about the Stolichnaya brand, you know, the Russian oligarch over there, that basically like she's claiming that he's doing exactly that. Interesting. These counterclaims lay bare the true nature of Pitt's egregious misconduct. To be clear, it is Pitt and not Jolie, Nouvelle, or any of the other defendants who has acted in a hostile, destructive, and illegal manner. Pitt's behavior has caused serious harm to Nouvelle. The rise of Chateau Miraval. In 2008, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie purchased Chateau Miraval, a 1,300-acre county estate in the south of France, through their respective investment holding companies, Mondo Bongo and Nouvelle. The property consists of a manor house, vineyards, and numerous other buildings. Pitt and Jolie set out to rejuvenate Chateau Miraval's then modest wine business, jointly investing tens of millions of dollars on improvements to the property. Chateau Miraval entered into a winemaking business venture with Famille Perrin, a well-known French winemaker, to make and market Chateau Miraval's wine. That partnership, called Miraval Provence, is led by Mark Perrin, the president of Famille Perrin. By agreement, Jolie continued her humanitarian work and was entrusted with pursuing the couple's extensive philanthropic work worldwide, including for the Jolie Pitt Foundation. Oversight of the couple's investment in Chateau Miraval was left in the hands of Pitt. So her characterization is oh yeah, she was more interested in saving the world, and so he decided to take over the business side and whatnot. Interesting characterization, but of course, like, this is the kind of stuff that you expect when we're talking about litigation. Chateau Miraval's wine business flourished, generating tens of millions of dollars in profits. In 2013, Chateau Miraval's rosé was named the best rosé of the year by Wine Spectator magazine. As the esteem for Chateau Miraval's wines grew, so too did the value of the business. Its trademarks linked to leading celebrities Pitt and Jolie and to its award-winning rosé wine became its most valuable assets, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Interesting. Jolie files for divorce, but all was not well. Pitt developed a publicly acknowledged alcohol abuse problem. In 2016, after a serious and internationally publicized incident between Pitt, Jolie, and the couple's children, Jolie filed for divorce. Yes, that seems to be the well-known private airline or private airplane incident where she says that he put his hands on her and then threatened the kids and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is a lot of shade, She is her characterization of this is, I am the saint. I'm the one who has been, essentially mistreated by this other person. He's this aggressor. He's this one who is wresting control in this joint venture. I just went off to go do my humanitarian work to save the world and save the children. And then I come back and he's got this alcohol problem and he's acting out. Okay. Pitt retaliates. In retaliation for the divorce and custody proceedings, Pitt embarked on a multifaceted years-long campaign to seize control of Chateau Miraval and appropriate the company's assets for his benefit and that of his own companies and friends. Appointing himself the rightful owner of Chateau Miraval, his twin objectives were to usurp the value of Jolie's company, Nouvelle, and to obtain sole ownership of Chateau Miraval. Pitt was aided by his allies, including Chateau Miraval directors Gary Bradbury, Roland Venturini, and Warren Grant, and his business partners Marc Perrin, Famille Perrin, and Miraval Provence. I mean, my immediate thought, though, on that is, like, it could be that, or it could be that they were all working together on this business and you decided to go off and do humanitarian work and not participate. And so all of them developed this working relationship and decided to continue working together to make things profitable and make as much money as possible. There are, right? Like there are multiple ways of looking at this. But obviously, what we're reading right now is her side of things. So it's interesting, though, to note that you can definitely look at that fact pattern in two different ways. Either she abandoned the business and he picked up the slack, or he wrested control as an aggressor and basically said, this is de facto my business and I'm going to take control and push you out entirely.
Yep.
At first, Pitt simply continued to operate Chateau Miraval without consulting with Jolie. But because much of Jolie's personal wealth and liquidity was tied up in Chateau Miraval through Nouvelle, Jolie and Nouvelle logically sought to get more information about and to play a greater role in Chateau Miraval's finances and operations. Jolie's efforts were consistently rebuffed by Pitt, who considered Chateau Miraval to be his personal property. That was and remains incorrect. Chateau Miraval is owned by a Luxembourg entity named Quimicum, in which Nouvelle and Mondo Bongo each owns a 50% interest. Yet, since Pitt was in operational control, he improperly used this ownership structure to his advantage to block Jolie and Novell from obtaining information about or managing Chateau Miraval. So it seems like the Luxembourg entity actually owned the land itself, and so they just basically bought the right to use the land for purposes of this business. So that would also answer your statute of frauds issue about the land.
Could well do.
Yeah. And that would also, I think be one reason for why this lawsuit is happening in California and not in France. Because usually when there's property involved, you file a lawsuit where the property exists. So, but if the dispute isn't actually about the land, but it's about the business that they created between their entities on top of the land, then that's a slightly different matter. Okay, he also hatched and executed a plan to secretly move assets from Chateau Miraval, which Jolie held through Nouvelle, to companies owned by him and his friends, thereby devaluing Jolie's interest in Nouvelle. Interesting. Okay. I mean, I would want to know, like, secretly move assets. Like, which assets is she talking about? Like, under what circumstances? Because is there possibly a legitimate reason for those to be moved from the general entity into his side of things? I don't know. Anyway, interesting. In order to retain control of Chateau Miraval, Pitt rebuffs all efforts to cooperate. Pitt had historically managed the couple's investment in Chateau Miraval and had full access to the business records of the company, even though he did not have a position as a director, officer, or employee. But as an indirect owner, he has no greater legal right to the company's business records or to manage the business than Jolie herself did. Nevertheless, Pitt refused to grant Jolie or Novell equal access to Chateau Miraval's records or an equal voice over management, effectively blocking Jolie and Novell from exercising any oversight over the company. This part right here, my BS meter is kind of coming up a little bit, because what was the mechanism that he used to block her out of those documents, right? Because ostensibly, if there was a director, if there was an officer of the company that he's just like controlling, why doesn't she have the ability to compel that director or officer or whomever to say, like, hey, I need access to these records too, because I am an investor. Like you have fiduciary duties to me because of the fact that you are also handling my money. So and especially because, like, this is a very sophisticated individual. This is not someone who is just going to be easily taken advantage of. As I mentioned before, this cross complaint was written by attorneys at Cravath. So, like, this is somebody who has the ability to hire a lawyer to send a strongly worded letter to say, hey, bozo, you need to give up these records. So on this part, I'm starting to think, I don't know how likely that one seems. Faced with this untenable situation, Jolie proposed to Pitt that each of them have equal representation on Quimicum's board to reflect their equal ownership interest in Quimicum and indirectly Chateau Miraval. Pitt rejected this reasonable proposal out of hand and used his 50% interest to prevent the election of directors to Quimicum. Pitt knew full well that under Luxembourg law, Quimicum could not act without any directors, so his refusal to cooperate had the effect of rendering Quimicum inactive. That left Pitt and Chateau Miraval without any effective supervision, because a directorless Quimicum could not take any action to oversee Chateau Miraval. Okay. I mean, but why? Like, when exactly did this happen? I mean, we don't have any sort of dates on, like, when these things happened, like when she made this offer, when he rejected the proposal, because it's, again, like, I would want to see I would want to see what opportunity she may have had to handle that in the moment, as opposed to now on the farther back end. Interesting. Pitt's control over Chateau Miraval was absolute. In 2021, when one of Chateau Miraval's 3 directors resigned, Pitt's allies, Bradbury and Venturini, appointed another Pitt ally, Warren Grant, Pitt's Hollywood business manager who has no wine business experience, as a Chateau Miraval director. When that ploy failed because Grant's appointment expired after it could not be made permanent, Pitt categorically refused to permit the appointment of a neutral director, knowing that under French law, the company's board could not act without 3 directors. He used the deadlock at Quimicum to perpetuate his improper control over Chateau Miraval. Okay, possibly. This is a possibility here. Although Chateau Miraval's wine business generates tens of millions of dollars in profits, Pitt ensured that Jolie and Nouvelle would never see a dime of that money. Instead, Pitt, Bradbury, and Venturini improperly diverted millions in dividends paid to Chateau Miraval from the Miraval Provence wine business to personal projects that lacked any legitimate business purpose, including spending over €1 million of the business's funds on a swimming pool and close to €3 million on garment work. Pitt also spent Chateau Miraval's money on personal projects, apparently for the benefit of Pitt and Mondo Bongo's other portfolio investments, including a recording studio on the Miraval estate, which Pitt structured so that Nouvelle has no direct ownership interest.
This doesn't quite sound right to me. What this is saying, this doesn't quite sound right. I mean, if the swimming pool is already on the estate, then as you pointed out, like €3 million on garment work, that could be legitimate for the business, and also that they restructured so it has no direct ownership interest. That doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound, something about it doesn't strikes me as off. Also, the fact that they brought in someone with a lot of business experience, but not particularly wine experience, as a director doesn't strike me as inherently odd. Business professionals move around from business to business with no particular knowledge of industries. It's not exactly unheard of or uncommon, so that doesn't strike me as odd. So her this narrative is striking me a little bit off.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that, particularly if that swimming pool already exists, like you mentioned, like that is something that would potentially necessitate some work. Garment work, I'm wondering what they mean by garment work. I can see where linens would be required for a winery. There are certain circumstances. Particularly, I could also envision a situation where this becomes not just a winery, but also a destination for people, for visitors. Oftentimes,
maybe they're buying merch. $3 million worth of merch.
I don't know. It could be right, because who knows? Because it's not unheard of to go and visit a winery, right?
No, I used to do it all the time when I was in Virginia. One of my favorite things to do.
Yeah. No, it's that can be a lovely thing to do, and especially if a place like this would have extra appeal, I would think, because you could be like, oh, this is not just a winery in the south of France. This is the winery in the south of France is owned by Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Heck yeah, I want to go and visit that and swim in the pool and do a wine tasting there. Like I can also see a potential future for a venture like that to add to the overall business income of the estate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I do agree. This needs more details in order to convince me of this part here. Okay. All right. So next part. Pitt misappropriates Chateau Miraval's trademarks. Yeah, this is the part that was a little strange at the top. So let's see if it makes sense as they sort of like lay it out here. Pitt, Bradbury, Venturini, and Grant have conspired with Famille Perron and Marc Perron to misappropriate the immense value of Chateau Miraval's trademarks. Miraval Provence is contractually bound not to register Chateau Miraval's trademarks
Now,
as its own.
at this point, when we say contractually bound, is this the contract that doesn't exist in writing, or is this some other contract that does exist?
I think that this is maybe a contract that does exist. I mean, if they're claiming that they're contractually bound, I think that implies that there is a contract between those parties. So, but perhaps there is no contract between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, or between their entities directly as to the sale of this property. I don't know. Yeah. Those if there are other contracts that exist here and there just isn't one between the two, or if there are other contracts that do exist between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie and none of them say anything about a first right of refusal.
What's not stated here is who is supposed to be who's supposed to be the registered owner of the trademark. It says, well, okay, they're not contractually bound to register the trademarks, but they've gone and registered. Okay. Who is supposed to be registering the marks? Someone, presumably, because the marks have value. So
I think because Miraval Provence is a separate entity, and it is maybe close enough to Chateau Miraval in name that it sounds like that could be confusing. Perhaps, I'm not sure. But let's keep reading. Maybe it'll enlighten us. But as Pitt's and the Perrin party's direction, Miraval Provence has improperly registered Chateau Miraval's trademarks all over the world, including in the United States. Pitt and Perrin have offered inconsistent explanations for these registrations. Pitt's representative stated that these transfers were undertaken in connection with a possible deal, but Perrin claimed that the express purpose of these improper registrations was to transfer 50% of the ownership of the marks to his company, Famille Perrin, because Perrin claims he deserved it. Chateau Miraval received no compensation for these registrations, and Chateau Miraval's directors, Bradbury, Venturini, and Grant, who had a duty to protect the trademarks, were willing participants in his scheme to strip Chateau Miraval of its assets. Okay, but I can see that those two are, I mean, they're different, yes, but I can see where the two statements can line up, though, right? Because if Pitt's representatives say that the transfers were undertaken in connection with a possible deal, that would imply that there's been some sort of value that's been exchanged, right? But according to Perrin, he says that he got it because he deserved it. That doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't a deal. That doesn't necessarily mean that there wasn't some kind of an exchange. In fact, that actually implies that he deserved it, meaning that he earned it, meaning that he had given value previously and was now getting paid for the value that he had previously given. If that makes sense. So I, it's not. It's like it's all of these things that she's saying here are like potential, but they're not the strongest. They're not the strongest, like, factual arguments, in my opinion.
Yeah. And also, like, from the other complaint we read, it was just Brad Pitt, and now he's involved in a conspiracy with the directors and some sort of nefarious plot with other people who are on board. I mean, it's possible, but
it definitely
something just, it doesn't smell quite right.
Yeah. There's the perception that I'm starting to get here is that it's Angelina Jolie versus everyone else involved in this winery.
Yeah. And that's a tough position to be in.
It is. And it could be legitimate, right? Like, she could be the one that's in the right and everybody else is wrong in this situation. But it's a tough place to argue from, right? Because you can just look at any one of those individuals, and if you find that any of them are legitimate, and that they're like, no, like, we're just running a business here. We're not doing anything improper. Like, all of the things that have been transferred properly for value received. Like all of these things have been done above board, and you're just complaining because you're upset because he's got something of value that you didn't earn over the years because you weren't putting your blood, sweat, and tears into it like he was, because you were off doing your humanitarian work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I can see other both potential sides to this. These improper trademark registrations have had devastating financial consequences on Nouvelle. Although Nouvelle holds a 50% economic interest in Chateau Miraval, it holds only a 25% economic interest in Miraval Provence, because Miraval Provence is equally co-owned by Chateau Miraval and Famille Perrin. By permitting Miraval Provence to register the Chateau Miraval trademarks, Pitt reduced the value of Chateau Miraval's assets by hundreds of millions of dollars and cut the value of Nouvelle's economic interest in the trademarks in half. Okay, I mean that whole last paragraph is entirely reliant on whether or not those transfers were proper. Right? Like if those were proper transfers, then who cares?
Yeah.
Jolie exits the business. Jolie was already becoming increasingly uncomfortable participating in an alcohol business. In addition, given the events...
Whoa. That actually kind of undermines Jolie's claims a little bit, because it now Jolie's basically saying explicitly, I wasn't comfortable with this business. I'm looking to exit. And you can't help but thinking, well, this isn't like a new development, right? This is probably going back. And it makes the argument that Pitt is the actual force behind this much more credible. Like Jolie was always uncomfortable. She was never really investing in it. And she's looking for the exit because she doesn't really like it. And Pitt's the one that's putting in the hard work and effort to make this thing grow, while she is just sucking the life out of the business, quite literally at this point. By this point of the complaint, I'm like, this undermines the argument that Pitt is involved in some sort of conspiracy against her. It's like she doesn't want to be involved, apparently. So something's wrong.
For this sentence to be strong, it should say Jolie was already becoming increasingly uncomfortable with participating in business with Brad Pitt. Right? Like that's what it should say, because of the things that he was doing. Like that's what it should say. But the fact that it says she's just generally uncomfortable here, you're absolutely right. It does undermine her argument that basically says he wrested control from me. He took all of this.
He never wanted it.
Gutting my investment.
He never wanted it. You just saw it. It sounds like now it's much more like it's just a fun thing to be like, oh, I'm the owner of a winery, like the cachet, being able to say I'm the owner, which is fine. You can be a silent partner. That's fine. But he's the one actually putting blood, sweat, tears in that. He's not so much wresting control as he's the only one who actually wants to do any work on this thing. Well, you just want the accolade of owning it while you're off doing your humanitarian thing. Which, if you're off doing your humanitarian thing, you're not doing the winery thing. You can't really be doing both.
Yeah.
So who's running this business again? This is putting Angelina Jolie in a bit of a bad light, it seems to me.
Yeah. I would not have included this sentence here.
No.
For
it put me on a whole tear there for a second there. So yeah.
In addition, given the events that led to her filing her divorce, neither she nor any of the children felt able to return to the chateau. Combined with Pitt's actions confirming that he had no intention of sharing control of Chateau Miraval with her, Jolie decided to sell Nouvelle. Well, okay, so saying that she didn't feel safe to return, that is potentially legitimate. I mean, this could be just a very gray, messy situation, right? Where he's right on the business side, but he also had this violent outburst on the plane, right? That she's completely in the right on that issue. So it could legitimately be that she doesn't feel safe, the kids don't feel safe in coming back to Chateau Miraval. But you could also send representatives, you could send lawyers, you could send strongly worded letters from lawyers, things like that can also happen. But I understand her saying that she didn't want to be in business with him anymore. I completely understand that. In fact, I would probably recommend that if you are divorcing your business partner, to maybe also divorce them in business as well, because that's generally not going to go over well from most people's experience. But then, the saying that she decided to sell Nouvelle, it depends on, whether that's a legitimate sale is its own issue, right? You can't just decide to sell something if you have certain restrictions.
Or can you? Do you have if you have a right of first refusal, then they have a right of first refusal, right? I mean, that would have to go both ways. So, yeah.
Well, all right, let's continue. Although Jolie was not obligated to sell Nouvelle to Pitt, she nevertheless offered to sell her interest to him and negotiated with him for months. Nearing a deal, Pitt's hubris got the better of him. He made an 11th hour demand for onerous and irrelevant conditions, including a provision designed to prohibit Jolie from publicly speaking about the events that had led to the breakdown of their marriage. Pitt knew that much of Jolie's wealth and liquidity were tied up in Nouvelle and used that fact to try to force Jolie to agree to his unreasonable terms. I could see that happening too. I could see them saying, like, just sort of like throwing in all of these other issues, into this deal and saying, like, like things that have nothing to do with the business at all, but being like, nope. Like, if we're going to agree to this deal, you're going to agree to this, and I'm going to agree to that. Like, I can see this stuff getting all just tossed in the kitchen sink. Like, I definitely get a sense of like the antagonism between the parties here for sure. Luckily for Jolie, other companies were interested in acquiring Nouvelle and its interest in Chateau Miraval. In October 2021, after Pitt ignored Jolie's final offer to sell her interest in the winery on the same terms Pitt had proposed, but with the hush clause, or without the hush clause, she sold Nouvelle to Tenuta del Mondo, a subsidiary of Stoli Group, an international beverage company. Tenuta was the proverbial white knight that solved everyone's problems. It allowed Jolie to liquidate her investment for the benefit of her family, freed Pitt from Jolie from having to do business with their former spouses, and put in place a substantial industry player that, through its capitalization, experience, and networks, would increase the prestige, distribution, and profitability of Chateau Miraval, making Pitt a substantially richer man. Okay. Possibly. Maybe. Stoli seeks to collaborate with Pitt. Stoli and Tenuta immediately got to work trying to support Chateau Miraval's wine business and forge a productive business relationship with Pitt and Perron. Stoli has vast experience in making and selling alcoholic beverages, including luxury vodkas, wines, whiskeys, and tequilas, and an extensive global distribution network. Stoli offered to put his experience and its powerful distribution capabilities to work to take Chateau Miraval to the next level. Perron initially appeared receptive to Stoli's participation in Chateau Miraval's wine business, but it soon became clear that Pitt would not agree to relinquish his absolute control over Chateau Miraval, and that Perron, Bradbury, Venturini, and Grant, despite understanding the advantages Stoli brought to the table, would do whatever Pitt told them to do. That's one way of characterizing it. There could be another characterization.
What do you mean he wouldn't agree to relinquish his absolute control, despite the understanding that all those people would do what Pitt told them to do? So what control is he refusing to give up? Apparently there was am I misreading this? It says that all these people would do whatever Pitt told them to do. So, but that was the understanding. So what absolute control is he supposed to give up? I'm confused.
I think that what she's referring to is the partnership with Stoli. Like, he refused to give up any control to Stoli through this partnership, is what she's saying. Right. So, and then basically all of these other friends of his became his henchmen that just took his marching orders, is what she's saying.
Okay. The sentences work.
So, yeah, it's agreed. It's not the clearest sentence. But it's, I can see her perspective saying that yes, Stoli is a very big alcohol company, and that has advantages to partnering with a very big alcohol company. It could take them to the next level. At the same time, there are some potential disadvantages which she's not addressing here, which I wouldn't expect her to, because like I said, this is being framed in a way that's most advantageous to her. Okay, Pitt turns his fire on Stoli Group. Ooh, okay, here we go. He's gonna now get aggressive towards them after being the aggressor in their relationship.
Oh, we lost Legal Bites. Come back, Legal Bites.
I know. It's my hang on. Okay, now we're back. Mic wire came loose, and then it automatically mutes me, and then when I unmute myself, it comes in through my AirPods. So I have to like go back and fix it. Okay, we're back. Okay, unwilling to share control, Pitt refused to work with either Stoli or Nouvelle as an equal partner. Stoli was shocked. Shocked, I tell you. They were shocked. It made objection calls for speculation. But anyway, it made no sense for Pitt to reject an experienced alcohol company with a worldwide distribution network. To the contrary, it became apparent that Pitt was not acting rationally, a development that Stoli had not expected. Despite Pitt's obviously emotional reaction, Stoli and Nouvelle made several proposals to allow the parties to work together, including offering to resolve the shareholder deadlock at Quimicum and to return normal governance to both Quimicum and Chateau Miraval. Thinking about this from the perspective of Stoli, this is a very sophisticated business, a very big alcohol business. I would think that if they were intending to fully partner with Pitt on this, that they would have made sure that they can actually work with him. Yeah. The fact that they were shocked by this because they didn't do any sort of due diligence for working with him until after
Stoli is shocked.
I think that's an indication that they didn't have any anticipation of actually working with him. That's my thought on that, because there's no way that such a sophisticated business like that is going to be like, okay, we'll just work with this guy. We haven't spoken to him. We don't know if he wants us. We don't know if we have a common goal, a common, like outlook on what it is that we want to achieve with this business. Like, but yeah, we'll just spit in the wind. Why not? I'm sure it'll work out. No, they're not going to do that. Like they're not going to do that. So that the fact that they didn't do that due diligence, I don't think they had any intention of working with them. I think that I think that I'm kind of in agreement. The fact that she says that they were shocked. No. I don't think so. If they were surprised by anything, it means that they didn't do due diligence. It means that they were intending to take it over, which is what Brad Pitt has been saying. So on that, I'm starting to feel
if Stoli's out there and would like to sponsor this stream, I'm just saying we're available, for sponsorship opportunities.
Why not?
Oh, that's right.
Okay, so Pitt rejected all of Stoli's overtures. He sent lawyers to business meetings who read messages from scripts and refused to engage in any discussion about the business. He repeatedly rejected proposals for co-equal governance of Quimicum and sent representatives to tell Stoli's executives that Pitt would not even talk to them unless Nouvelle gave Pitt legal control over Quimicum. Pitt pugnaciously refuses to cooperate with Stoli to this day.
Nice word choice. I approve. Pugnaciously?
Pugnacious.
That's nice.
Pugnacious. Yeah, it's good. It's good. But that's not all. Desperate to shift attention from his own bad behavior, including his looting of Chateau Miraval, Pitt's representatives made inflammatory accusations about Stoli personnel during meetings with and in emails to Nouvelle and in court filings in Luxembourg. Those inflammatory assertions are false. One of Pitt's lies in his suggestion that Stoli's group owner, Yuri Shefler, is an ally of Vladimir Putin. In reality, ever since Mr. Scheffler rebuilt Stoli from the ashes of its Soviet predecessor into a profitable business, I mean, oh geez, now we're even getting into like Soviet post-Soviet history here.
Am I the only one hearing a fiddle in the back of my mind now as we to tell the torturous history of Stoli coming up from the ashes under the thumb of Putin? I hear the fiddle. I can't be the only one.
Maybe. So let's. Oh gosh, this paragraph is going to be wild. I can just feel it. In reality, ever since Mr. Scheffler rebuilt Stoli from the ashes of its Soviet predecessor into a profitable business, he has been in open conflict with Putin and Russia. Stoli has been locked in litigation with the Putin regime for decades over control over the Stolichnaya vodka trademarks. Scheffler and Stoli have repeatedly and publicly denounced the Putin regime and its reprehensible invasion of Ukraine. Putin's people once even tried to kidnap Scheffler. For Pitt to suggest that Scheffler, who has been fighting Putin for decades, is in fact a Putin ally is truly outrageous. In reality, Scheffler is a highly regarded figure in the industry who is known for his firm opposition to the Putin regime. Scheffler and Stoli and its affiliates have over the years been welcomed with open arms by some of the top names in the wine world, such as the Italian wine royalty Frescobaldi family and Michael Mondavi, and some of the top companies in the drinks world, such as PepsiCo, Pernod Ricard, Allied Domecq, and Diageo. Diageo.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to go, it almost sounds like she's saying like, look at all of these glorious corporations that love him, like as if like just completely ignoring that like there are many people out there that view corporations as like the evilest of all evil, like especially the big ones like PepsiCo that owns like everything, right? So I don't know. I'm not so sure. Like
I'm enjoying this rough Russian story about the strident person fighting the persons. I see the gulags in the distance as I hear the tales be told. It's a little much.
Hey, like I can empathize, right? I can empathize because I've got family in Lithuania that was, annexed by the Soviet Union. I've got, the reason why I'm an American is because my family was refugees during World War II. Otherwise, they 100% were on a list to get sent to Siberia. So I can definitely empathize with the strife of the post-Soviet development in a lot of these countries and the ways in which they had to sort of claw their way into the modern world after the fall of the Soviet Union. It was not necessarily easy for a lot of these countries and for a lot of these companies, but there are some people that were in the right place at the right time and made a ton of money after these companies, just were ownerless because the state owned them and now the state no longer existed. So they were like, well, I'll do this and I'll, work on this and then, make millions. But anyway, this does definitely feel like this paragraph was not exactly made for the court. This was not made for the judge. This paragraph was made for us. This was made for the media. This was made for the people that are interested in this case and are gonna go through and read it and pick it apart and talk about it. Pitt is gaslighting, claiming that he is the victim in order to cover up the harm he intentionally caused to his ex-wife, including her from the business and holding the most significant part of her net worth hostage, and the business, asset stripping, and foolish spending. But Pitt should look in the mirror because it is he and not the Stoli group who carries baggage, some of it recent front page news that is detrimental to Chateau Miraval's business.
Snap.
Oh, that is some shade. Oh my goodness. Whoa. He should look in the mirror because it's he who carries the baggage, some of it recent front page news.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like I was not thinking that, the whole leak of the anonymous, request for the investigation to the FBI that was made public, that was leaked to the press recently. Like, it wasn't exactly, stated outwardly that it was Angelina Jolie, but a lot of people were saying this is probably Angelina Jolie leaking this to the press at this time. I'm always very hesitant to like jump on that kind of a train, but this statement makes me think like, oh shit. Like if they're gonna use that, like it almost feels like the timing of it feels very coincidental. Like this was just filed 3 days ago, y'all.
Yeah.
Like this was just filed, and that news came out like a week ago.
Yeah.
So this feels very
Angelina Jolie engaged in a little character assassination there.
Yeah. Man, oh man. That's some strong shade right there. It is time for Pitt, Mondo Bongo, and their collaborators who have enabled and participated in their schemes, Bradbury, Venturini, Perron, Famille Perron, Miraval Provence, and Grant, to be held to account for their illegal conduct. Among other relief, Novell seeks more than $250 million in damages to compensate it for cross-defendants' unlawful and oppressive conduct. Woo!
Okay. Well, that might be a trial someday. And if it is, I suppose we'll cover it.
Yeah. Oh man, that's going to be this is spicy. This is very spicy, and it continues to get spicier. It already was spicy from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Oh man. So let me get a couple super chats here. Miss Wing 608, thanks for your super chats. It seems like a case of she needs to pick a lane and stay in it with the winery thing. Maybe, yeah. I mean, it does feel like she was like, well, I wasn't really active in it because I was interested in other things, but he also pushed me out at the same time. I mean, and those two things could be kind of true, that if she was like, maybe not so enthusiastic about it, but then what enthusiasm she did have was completely extinguished because he was just so aggressive about it. I don't know. That's possible, but it doesn't feel like that's what's happening here based on my reading of this stuff so far. What do you think, Kurt?
This I don't know. This story feels like a little much. It feels a little overly dramatic. It feels a little overly theatrical. It feels a little overly wrought somehow. It feels, I don't know. That's my initial gut impression of the things. Pitt's side of it seems a bit more plausible on balance.
I would agree, and I don't want to. I don't want to start like, framing myself as like this like man supporter, women hater, because it's like Amber Heard and like, so many of these other cases like where it's I'm entering these cases with some skepticism against what a lot of these women are saying, but I mean, come on. Like,
well, I mean, you read two stories, you read two versions of a story. And so at this point, all you can do is ask yourself which one. I mean, all you can do is say which one seems more plausible, right? I mean, there's nothing else to do. Yeah. And of course, if this ever comes to trial, there's going to be presumably evidence and testimony and all the rest of it. But on an initial assessment, all you can do is say, well, which story sounds more plausible? And at least for me, Angelina Jolie's story feels it's a little weaker. There's points where it's self-contradictory to my mind. Right. She seems to concede that she wasn't really interested in the business. She seems to concede that she was doing her humanitarian thing. She seems to concede to some degree that she was looking for an exit. She seems to the story about like and the virtuous Russian fighting the power and all the rest of it, just it feels a little overwrought, overly dramatic. I'm like, where's Feifel in this? Is basically where I'm thinking something's like just something's a little bit wrong here. And so on balance, you know, and also the fact that Angelina Jolie says not only is it Pitt, but it's Pitt and all these people who are in this conspiracy against me.
Yeah.
And it just feels a little weaker. So, I mean, that's my balance of just trying to assess it based on its merit. So, and I mean, as for example, with relation to the whole, like, for example, Marilyn Manson thing, I have yet to render an opinion. I know that, for example, Colonel Kurtz and Andrea have rendered opinions on it. I respect their opinions. I have not yet rendered an opinion in terms of it. I've not. So I don't think I'm being unduly favorable to one side or the other. It's not like I'm just trying to assess it for myself.
Yeah. I will say that I started off with questions because, you know, seeing the FBI letter and, you know, that kind of stuff that just, you know, right off the bat raises questions for sure. And those questions haven't gone away. Like, if anything, I feel like I've gotten more that has just raised more questions, I think, as to their claims on that side, in that case. But I'm still not willing to like go forward and say that that I think that there's some sort of an overall conspiracy between a bunch of women, you know, that it's all lies. Like, I'm nowhere near being able to saying that, you know, because I couldn't conclude that at this point. But this case, I mean, it could be that Brad Pitt surrounded himself with a bunch of yes men. It could totally be that way for sure. Like, it could be that he decided that the people that he wanted to, you know, and the other French businessmen that he, you know, had in that camp too, that he decided to work with them particularly because they were, you know, yes men as well. I don't know. That could be the case, but like, or it could be Amber Heard saying, you know, it's Johnny Depp and all the people that work for him, and everybody else is like, you know, it's all of them. They're all in this conspiracy that they all decided to lie on his behalf because they're yes men, you know, like it could be either one. I'm not really sure, but you're right. Like, it's from their most, like, this is where we should get the strongest image of either case, right? Because it's like from the First Amendment complaint on Pitt's side, and then from the cross complaint on Jolie's side, like, this is where we should be basically getting them framing it like, oh shoot, this is what the story really is, right? And at first, that's how it looked on Pitt's side. Like she comes out with guns blazing, basically like saying like no, he's the aggressor. He tried to, like, he was the one that wrested control from me, basically gutted my investment company, and, you know, and all this kind of stuff. But then these little things start coming up, and I wonder, like, why in all of the revisions to this cross complaint that they did at the firm, like, why certain sentences and certain phrases ended up like making it in there, like like for example, the fact that she said that she was increasingly uncomfortable with owning a wine or an alcohol business, like that sticks out like a sore thumb, because there's it's not connected to any kind of context. It's not connected to any sort of like reason why that would have anything to do with the issues in this particular case. So like the fact that it sticks out like that, it makes you wonder, like, well, why? Is that the real reason why you had issues with your participation in this venture? Or is it because you say that, you know, he was, you know, aggressively taking control from you? I don't know. That opens up more questions on her side, just from her own framing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it weakens her case for sure.
And you know, it's just an initial assessment based on comparing two documents and trying to say, well, what do you think based on these two documents? So, you know, as you read more and as things change, you know, you would obviously change your mind. So, And if when this gets to trial, you'd hear the testimony and try to assess it based on that. I don't know what else what else to do. And if you didn't have any opinion between the two, I'd respect that as well. But if you have an opinion, because at least I don't think it's like a massive. I don't think like it's overwhelming. I'm not like ready to like cast my lot with Brad Pitt and say, oh, I think he's totally in the right. It's just like between the two. Angelina Jolie stories, as I said, I thought I gave enough qualifying language. I think it's just a little weaker.
Yeah.
It has a little problems. There's a little here that seems a little off, a little bit overwrought. I'm like, So on the balance, it's like, yeah, I think Brad Pitt, at least initially, has at least a slightly better case. But there's a lot of baseball left to be played. So as things change, reassess.
Oh yeah, there's still discovery that has to be. Well, actually, both sides have to answer each other's complaints. So there's that, or try to get them dismissed or struck. Various claims and stuff. So, but Nicholas Starrow, Unionist Labor Law, says risky oligarchs are known for their Pikachu face. In fact, they are. But yeah, this case is interesting, and it's only getting increasingly so. So I'm for sure going to want to be keeping tabs on this one. Thank you so much for joining me for today, Kurt.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, talking about, let's see, the Nirvana Baby, the OnlyFans murder case, and this one, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
All the exciting things for Friday.
Interesting topics for a Friday, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks everyone in the chat, and thank you to Secret McSquirrel for modding. I don't know if any other mods were in the chat today. I think I only saw Secret McSquirrel. But if there were any other mods, thank you, mods. And thanks to everybody for joining. And and thanks again to Kurt for joining me with this awesome discussion. This was great.
Thank you.
So otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video.